All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a really powerful and, honestly, pretty unsettling text that completely reframes our world. It argues we're not living in a time of peace, but just a temporary truce between wars. And it presents one nation with a very stark choice for its future, a choice between two completely different destinies.
So the source material just jumps right in by challenging something we all kind of take for granted. It asks us to look around, look at the news, the tensions bubbling up between countries, and seriously ask ourselves, is this what peace really looks like, or is it something else entirely?
And that question? Well, it leads us right into the author's core philosophy, this idea that peace itself might just be an illusion, one that's hiding a much harsher reality.
And this right here, this is the central idea. According to this text, the whole concept of a permanent end to war is just a nice story we tell ourselves. The reality, it argues, is that conflict is our natural state of being, and these calm periods we enjoy, they're just pauses, a truce before the next fight inevitably begins.
The source basically paints this picture of humanity as part of the animal kingdom, right? Constantly driven by this deep, ancient instinct to protect our territory and just survive. And from that perspective, national borders aren't just lines on a map. No, they're basically these tense front lines in a constant, low-grade war.
Okay, so the author takes this huge idea of constant conflict and then turns it inward, arguing there's a war going on not just between countries, but inside our own heads.
So the source takes a term with all kind of herd, cognitive dissonance, and gives it this really specific, unique spin. Here, it's not just about holding two clashing beliefs. It's the deep anxiety that we feel from pretending we live in a peaceful world when our gut instincts know we're actually in a state of constant, everyday battle. And that, the text says, is where our daily stress, the so-called 108 torments, really comes from.
The author basically sets up this stark contrast, right? On one side, you've got peacetime, but it's framed as this state of denial, this cognitive dissonance that just leads to endless anxiety. Then, on the other side, you have wartime, which is about accepting reality as it is. And that acceptance, surprisingly, is what's supposed to lead to mental clarity.
And this is where it gets really wild. The source makes this super provocative claim that in the sheer chaos of an actual battlefield, when nothing matters but survival, all those little daily anxieties, the 10-8 torments, they just disappear. It's a huge paradox, right? The idea that the most extreme stress imaginable could actually create a state of pure mental focus, what the author calls cognitive harmony.
So this psychological theory then gets scaled right up to the global stage. The text basically argues that we are smack in the middle of a massive conflict between two giants, whether we want to admit it or not. The text maps this all out for us, framing the tension we see today not as something new, but as the next chapter in a long story. It starts way back with the Korean War, goes through America's period of dominance, and sees China's economic boom as the real setup for a new battle for global supremacy.
And the author has a name for this whole situation, the Second U.S.-China War. From this viewpoint, we're way past trade disputes. This is a full-blown struggle for who gets to set the rules for the 21st century.
Now, this huge global struggle, it's not just some abstract idea. It has a very real, very dangerous front line. And the author zooms right in on the Korean Peninsula, arguing it's once again the epicenter of this great power conflict.
From this point of view, the American strategy is straight out of a classic playbook. The main goal? Containment. By making alliances with Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines stronger, the U.S. is trying to build a wall, basically, to box in China's naval power and stop it from expanding into the Pacific.
And this is where South Korea comes into the picture. It's not just another ally, not just another piece on the board. The text identifies it as the linchpin, the one essential piece that, if it breaks, could make the whole strategy fall apart.
I mean, that's a really powerful metaphor, isn't it? South Korea is shown as being both a forward observation post, a frontline GP, and the critical piece holding the entire strategic wheel together. It really drives home how important and how incredibly vulnerable that position is.
And all of this leads to a pretty chilling warning. The source argues that if South Korea's leaders and its people stay in this state of cognitive dissonance, mistaking this 70-year truce for real, permanent peace, they're at risk of getting completely blindsided and repeating the horrors of the past.
So all of this builds to the author's final, really dramatic point.
The nation is standing at a crossroads, with two totally different futures stretching out ahead of it, and which one becomes reality depends on the choices being made right now.
And the way this choice is framed is through these two incredibly powerful cultural images. One path leads to prosperous K-pop, which stands for a future of global success, wealth, and influence, but you only get there by seeing the dangerous reality and navigating it smartly. The other path, it leads to a bleak war song, a future of destruction and pain, caused by staying in denial.
And that's the question we're left with. The text doesn't pretend to have the answer. It insists the future isn't set in stone. The final outcome, whether it's a vibrant pop song or a sad war song, all comes down to whether people can shake off that illusion of peace and find what the author calls cognitive harmony. It's a really challenging idea to sit with, and that's exactly where the source leaves us.